My name is Vasiliy, and I'm like developer. I'm hacking NGINX, develop modules. I'm working with a pretty giant internet company, and I have a lot of experience of NGINX with databases. And today, my speech will be about NGS. 1 year ago, I had a chance to, how to say, play with NGS, and I found it is very useful tool for production. Not only for production, actually for API gateway. That's why before we speak about NGS, we speak about anything else, we will have to discuss what API gateway means. But before, it's really important, I wish to say where to use API gateway, because it's like it's very, how to say, interesting where to use API gateway and where to not use. That's why I placed this slide. I believe that the best usage of API gateway could be in company with a lot of different projects. Because it will reduce TCO, total cost of ownership, and it probably will increase time to market. And another point where to use API gateway, if you for some reason need to have general tracing, general logging, general authentication, or probably web application firewall, and where probably not to use API gateway. I believe for small project you don't need to have API gateway, because API gateway at least adds a lot of problem with testing, with integration, with CI/CD. It's actually a very huge project. And if you have a small project, you probably don't need to have API gateway. Just install NGINX and everything will be great. So I believe that before you will use API gateway, you have to think why you need to use it. You have to research pros, cons, and so on. Well, going forward, and let's speak about API gateway, about API gateway functions. This slide actually shows that that it should have at least tracing, authentication, web application firewall, logging, and the new thing, what I think that has to be inside API gateway is application server. I will explain this point in our slide. So before that, I wish also say about function, what this means, what each function means. Well, authentication is really simple. It's just testing incoming token, and if everything is okay with token, then request should go into some backends. It's really useful to have general authentication because it's really hard to introduce general authentication for each backend inside each backend. So it's a really nice feature to have general authentication. And yeah, logging, that's important. Because at least you have to understand what happened inside your infrastructure. For example, something that's wrong with backend, something wrong with something else. So it's really important for debugging, for troubleshooting, and even more for analyzing of behavior of your clients. Well, tracing is a really simple feature, but it's a really nice feature. It allows to understand the way of request. Well, basically, it's just something which allows to you add a unique idea for each request. I add this simple example. Is not a general example, but it's almost real trace idea. In real life, for example, me and my company use more complex trace ID, but this example is okay too. And yeah, I didn't show like general implementation of trace ID because for some reason everybody has own implementation. Yeah, and application firewall. I'm not a big security expert, sorry, but general web application firewall allows check your traffic for some security issue, probably block requests based on some different rules. Well, so it's generally just protection your backends from security issues. Well, so conclusion about IP gateway, it has a lot of pros, like you have your team, your company have to less development. You have like general logging, general tracing, and our feature. And if you launch a new product, it's definitely will have better time to market. You don't need to introduce logging, tracing, and blah, blah, blah. And it's more controlled to your ecosystem. For example, you always have general logging. You can understand what went wrong. You also have trace ID. You can understand the way of your request. But it also has some cons. For example, in my experience, it's really hard to implement inside company IP gateway. And even if it's implemented, it's really hard to integrate in existing ecosystem, because what is IP gateway is like a lot of rules for each backend. And sometimes IP gateway also is not flexible. That's why I believe that application server should present inside IP gateway. And going forward, and let's speak about what is NGS. Well, NGS is JavaScript engine introduced by NGINX core team. It was developed from scratch. It doesn't use V8 or R engines. It's just standalone new engine. And it has a very nice feature. It's really sometimes alternative of C module. So you don't need to implement new C module to have some feature. You just can use NGS, but not for all possible cases. And the last one, but not least, nice feature is that NGS is standalone library. You can use NGS in any language, in any technology. And yeah, I have a very funny fact here. NGS doesn't have garbage collector inside. That's really plus because I have a lot of experience with LuaJit, and LuaJit has terrible problem with garbage collecting system. Sometimes your production server just can freeze without any reasons. And let's start to discuss what NGS module, not NGS as language, but module for NGINX, which directive this module has. So the first directive is JSSet, is actually very simple directive. It allows to add variables with complex logic inside NGINX configuration. It's very useful, for example, for generating trace ID or even for authentication. I will show you how it works with authentication in another slide. Another nice feature is JS content, but I didn't have a chance to use it in production, but I have to say about this. This directive allows to you do some asynchronous things like sub request and return some data from different URL. Here's actual example. And yeah, links to all example will be at the end of presentation. And yeah, here is more complex example is, let's say you have to introduce S3 proxy. For example, you have S3 storage and you have to proxy traffic from NGINX to S3. Yeah, you can use NGS to introduce this feature inside NGINX without C coding. You don't need to introduce new module. And actually, this example, link to this example will be at the end of presentation. I will not discuss about how S3 works. So it's like just nice example about features of this language. Where to use NGS? According to my experience, probably somebody has our experience. Well, this very nice tool for introducing new variable inside NGINX configuration. It's really useful for logging, for tracing, and as I showed, for authentication. and you don't need to write your code using C language. That's important. I'm a C developer and I know how to write code C, but I don't like to do this. Sometimes it's better to use another language. And JS content also is really nice feature for prototyping, but I didn't have a chance to use it in production. And also, as I mentioned before, using NGS, you could extend everything inside NGINX, and I will show how this feature actually undocumented feature, and I will also show a demo. But before I show demo and say what this feature means, I will also say a few key points. The first key point, NGS is standalone library. It's standalone engine. You can use NGS whatever you wish, not only in NGINX, because the way how to use NGS in NGINX is like NGINX module. So it means it already used some engine. And in my experience, I'm using actually NGS to extend some modules, because I need flexibility for some modules. And this example hard to explain without demo. That's why I wish to show demo. Well, I have a very simple configuration here. Is just server which bind on localhost. And the server has add header, it's built-in directive inside NGINX. And if you don't know how it works, I will say that this option is wrong. Add header cannot accept something like this. Actually, this example, I tied together NGINX add header and NGS to have more flexible add header. And yeah, this location also go to another server, and this server do nothing interesting actually. It returns different status codes and data, depends on location. Okay, let's try. Check, yeah. Oh, wrong. Just check, yeah. I started NGINX. Yeah, another important thing, what I really add. Right now, this patch allows to use add header with NGS. So this actually NGS function, which do following thing. It check return code from backend, and if return code is not 200, in that case, this header will not be added. If return code is 200, in that case, this header will be added into respawn. And let's test it. Yeah, that's great. I use location which return 200, and as you can see, this header is present in respawn. But if I use another location which returns not 200, in that case, there is no header. And this feature is like header more. Actually, header more module has the same feature, because I'm using this module a lot, and I believe probably after this presentation, guys from NGINX will add something like this with add header. It will be nice. And about flexibility, for example, let's say I'm okay with, I don't know, with 404, for example. In that case, I just can really simple add another line, restart NGINX, and even if server return 404, in that case, I still see this header. So it's really flexible. You cannot have this by using NGINX configuration. It's impossible, because that header work executes after you can have any condition, depends on request. Yeah, and also link to this patch will be at the end of presentation. Well, and this actually a simple explanation how I extend add header. I try to explain. What is add header? Add header is actually another module for NGINX, and I just patch NGINX. I add call of JavaScript function, which returns some data, and I just check data. If return is true, it means we need to add this header. If false, it means header will not be added. So it's really simple to add NGS inside your models, but the problem is that you have to write code using C. There is no chance, sorry. Well, conclusion about NGS. It's really very powerful tool, and it has already a lot of undocumented feature, like you can use NGS whatever you wish, whatever you want. If you wish to extend your own model, you can use NGS. And cons, I work probably a lot with NGS, and I found there is no way to debug it, to debug code. You have to use print style debugging, like add line by line and see what happened. That's not good if you have a lot of code. It's really nice if guys from NGINX will introduce something like debugger or tracing or something like this. Another problem, there is no way to work with shared memory inside NGS. Yeah, that's problem. It could be problem. But for my company, I introduced this feature because that's important. You need shared memory to exchange data between different locations, between different JavaScript virtual machine, and it's really important. And another problem, there is no sockets. Yeah, there is sockets, but you cannot use sockets directly. You have to emulate it using JS content and sub requests, which is not okay for me because, for example, let's say you have 1 gigabyte of data transferring. In that case, you use sub requests. You have to wait all body, 1 gigabyte body. It's really huge piece of data. So the nice thing, if guys will introduce something like socket, like Lua and OpenRacey introduced. And how I use NGS with IP gateway? Well, Trace ID. It's a very nice tool to introduce very flexible Trace ID based on everything what have NGINX. Another thing, as I showed before, NGS could be used for introduce authentication logic. It's really important, at least for prototyping. You can create prototype authentication really simple and really fast. And yeah, for general prototyping, it's okay too. And I have to say about a few words about LuaJit or OpenResty versus NGS. Well, as I mentioned before, there is a huge problem with LuaJit. It has garbage collection issue, and freeze, it's not good. NGS doesn't have this problem. It actually doesn't have a garbage collector inside. It's based on different philosophy. And LuaJit also doesn't support it well. For example, Mike Paul, he stopped support LuaJit about 2 years ago. That's not good. There is a lot of forks. And yeah, NGS supported by NGINX core team, which is good. But the problem that NGS right now has less functionality than LuaJit. And less CIP stability. For example, about 1 month ago, I pulled new sources of NGS from repo, and I found that CIP changed for some reason. It wasn't a big problem, but I wish to have more stability. Well, general conclusion is IP gateway should be used only if you have a big IT ecosystem. It's a really nice tool. It's decreased your total cost of ownership. And our conclusion is NGS is, for me, is better than LuaJit. And I believe that in the future, NGS will have a lot of new features, and NGS could be used in production. It works pretty well, at least for cases which I showed at this presentation. And here is all possible reference. Yeah, sorry, it's a lot of reference. And NGS example also contains example with my previous speech about how to develop NGINX model using C language. And yeah, modules, I add few links to another models during my talk, and also there are links to modules. Jesus, it was fast. That's it. That's all. During training, I spent more time. Well, probably somebody, some question? Proxy pass? Yeah, it's possible. It's possible to have a sub request inside location where is proxy pass or memcached pass or anything pass. Yeah. You can see examples. There are actually proxy paths to another thing during sublocation. So yeah, it is possible and okay. And actually, that's how you can use sockets using proxy pass or anything pass.
Any working example of NGS with authentication, external authentication?
Here is actually an example. This link links to example to S3 authentication. You can play with it. It's actually a prototype, but I don't with prototype for my company. But it's it's more complex. So that's why I just add a very simple version of this prototype.
I have two questions. First question is I have two questions. First question is comparing the performance between NGS and the C module. Do you see any significant difference? The second question is roughly how much functionality can be done with NGS comparing to like build a custom model in C? Thank you.
Very good questions. The answer on the first question is, yeah, I had this this report, but it's really huge, and sorry, I don't have a lot of time to prepare it, and I think that I will have time to write an article about this. But the short answer is it increased latency. It's increased latency at least twice if you're using C model versus NGS. But you know, it depends case on case. I tested S3 authentication because there is a C model, S3 authentication. It's not my model, but I just review code. It looks ok. And I tried NGS authentication. I play with it, and I found about latency increased 2 times if I use NGS. Yeah, the second question answers will be really complex. I don't have this comparison, but how to say, actually, sorry. But second answer is, I guess NGS has less functionality than C modules because using C modules you can create everything. You can use shared memory. You can use any devices, anything. And NGS has a lot of limitation right now. For example, it has not much built-in libraries. For example, if you wish to work with sockets, you don't have any chance to work with sockets. But inside NGINX, you can work with sockets. Or if you wish to work with some C library, there is no chance to work with C libraries inside NGS. So it's definitely less functionality. Well, thank you very much. And if you have any questions, I will be somewhere around.